Welcome to Storytime with Stephanie, a platform for independent authors to share their stories of transformation, self-help, education, and sometimes pure entertainment. Want to grow with us on this journey and support these up and coming authors? Subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss an episode. I'm your host, Stephanie Outen, the literary doula. Are you ready for the show? Let's do this. Hello. Welcome to Storytime with Stephanie. We are premiering season 7, and I'm so excited to be back with you all. It's been a few months, and I'm super excited for our first guest of the night. We have Sharhonda Exantus. She's a practicing pharmacist with a love for whodunits and cozy mysteries. She's a native of Miami, Florida, and received her Doctor of Pharmacy from Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, that we lovingly know as FAMU. In her spare time, she enjoys writing and binge reading mystery and crime novels, particularly psychological thrillers. And yes, she definitely demonstrates that in her book. Sins of the Lines is her debut novel. Sharhonda currently resides in Florida with her husband and 3 children, and you can learn more about her by visiting her website at www.sharhondaexantus.com. Sharhonda, are you with us?
I am. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me.
Hey, Sharhonda. Oh, I'm so happy to have you.
Hi, thank you for having me. Hey, everybody.
Absolutely. Sharhonda is one of our Black and Brown Book Bazaar authors. So I call her one of our B4 authors. And yes, this is just a privilege and an honor to be able to have her as our first guest. As you can see behind her, she has her book lovingly displayed right on her banner, Sins of the Lines. Look, y'all, when I read this book, I said, okay, I gotta have her on the show, because this book is fire. And because of just the nature of my schedule, I don't get to read physical books as often anymore. I have to listen to them on, Audible or something like that. When it comes to the guests on the show, I do read their physical books. And when I got this book, I read it in like a day and a half, like less than 2 days, because I could not put it down.
Oh, wow. Well, that's for me.
Yeah. Like, I could not put this book down. And then I called my friend Erica, because I knew Erica had gotten the book too. Yep. And Erica said, that book is fire. So, let me tell you, I don't want to give like too much of the book away, but I know we have to kind of tell a little bit about the book to get people interested. So I'm going to read a snippet of what you have on the back, and then we'll just kind of dive in. Okay.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. It says, everyone has something to hide, and someone has nothing to lose. Nia Bryant has waited her entire life for this moment, the day when she and her line sisters are revealed as the newest members of Kappa Theta Theta sorority. It's supposed to be the happiest day of her life, except Nia Bryant is missing. Oh, I'm not even going to go further. That thing sent chills up my spine when I read it, when I purchased it at the Black and Brown Book Bazaar, and I read just that little snippet, and I was like, okay. Yes. I need to know what happened to Miss Nia Bryant. So I want you to tell us a little bit about, first of all, how you came up with the concept for this book, Sins of the Lines.
Well, like I said, I always have liked reading psychological thrillers, mysteries, things like that. This book came to me now it's about 7 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago. And I wanted to write something where there was a connection between the characters. So not something necessarily where you have someone just randomly, take someone or kidnap someone or something like that. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be a close connection. You usually think of family, but in this situation, I chose a Greek organization. And if you know anything about Greek organizations, me going to HBCU, I got a chance to see, how tightly knit they are. brothers and sisters in this organization, and you would never think that something like that would happen, or that there would be any type of betrayal between people with that type of bond. So the idea came to me, and I was like, oh, that would be something interesting to write about. And I just started, one day just sat down and started writing. And I will admit, it when it first came to me, that this story that actually was published is not exactly the same. It grew as time went, and things changed, and I got different ideas. But yeah, it was something that I wanted the characters to have a relationship. I like a whodunit. Yeah, so that's how this idea came about.
And the interesting thing is, I used to read a lot of mystery as well, and kind of watch mysteries. I don't really like, things with like a lot of killing and stuff like that. And there's some things that happen in this book that you're like, whoa, but I have
Yes.
to say, it was so well thought out. So even though you said things changed about it, and I think that's what makes a great book and a great author, is that you create your story, but it evolves over time, because you become, especially when you write fiction, and I write fiction too, so I get excited talking to fiction writers, but you realize that you become so closely connected to the characters as well. And
Yeah.
sometimes you want to see the story shift a little bit.
Yes.
So tell us, if you can, about some of the things that were a little bit different than how they ended up in the book that I read.
Well, the relationship with Evie was different. Who she was related to, or who she was, related to, was different.
Okay.
I also changed some things with Tori. Her relationship with her mother was, as you read, was complicated. And that wasn't really a factor when I first wrote the book. That was something that, going through the editing process, my editor, she told me, she said, I want to know more about this character, and to kind of develop the characters a little bit more. So I took that and tried to give Tori something that she was struggling with in her personal life, with dealing with her mother, and being out on her own in college, and just having to navigate life with an overbearing mother. So situations like that were different. I'm trying to think of something else that may have been different in the beginning from the end. A lot of that came into play with my editor and her giving me some feedback. Evie was not a voice in the beginning. She was in the book, but she was not a point of view. So at my first edit, I added her voice, and I think that her voice is like one of the most pivotal voices in the book.
Yes, it is.
Really added something to it. At first, I just had Detective Chris and Tori, and Evie came along afterwards.
Wow.
Yeah, it really evolved. The main story was definitely, the premise of the story was about the same, but there were different things that I added to.
Okay, so I see a question from Christian Exantus. He says, Detective Chris was undoubtedly the most captivating aspect of the book. I am curious to know the inspiration behind the creation of this character. I can only guess who Christian is, but why don't you tell us?
Right. That's my husband. Yes, he actually is, the Detective Chris is based off of him.
Okay.
He's a police officer, and I got a lot of my inspiration, a lot of my, I go to him with questions like, what is the process like? Because I'm not in that life, what do they do? And so he was able to, tell me, it wouldn't happen this way, or it would happen this way, or it could happen this way, but it doesn't normally. But this is a book, this is fiction. You can do what you want with it.
Yes.
So yeah, his character, and he's a character that I want to continue to use. So in my next book, he's in there. He's in there as well. So that's where I got the idea for Detective Chris.
Yeah, I love that. And thank you for asking that question, Christian. I love that because, I do believe all good fiction is based in some way on reality. And so the fact that you were able to draw on his experiences as a police officer made it more realistic because, you know, I read a lot
Mm-hmm.
and I watch a lot of television when I can. And so I'm always piecing things together. And when something seems unrealistic, I have to call it out. But
Yes.
there was nothing in regards to the things that Detective Chris Evans was talking about that seemed unrealistic. Erica says, good question, Christian. Were any of the characters inspired by real people? So we know that Detective Chris was inspired by your husband.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
No, everybody else was pretty much made up. Tori was, there were parts about Tori that I saw in myself. She's quiet, she's soft spoken. She, doesn't have, she has her one friend. Like I have a group of friends, that a very small group of friends that I hold dear, near and dear to my heart. So she was kind of a character that wasn't necessarily based off of me, but she was a character that I when I was writing, I tried to put a lot of the traits that I see in myself in her.
Okay.
Um, but yes, Detective Chris and Tori were, I pulled from myself and from my husband.
Okay, okay. Now, without giving too much of the book away, I'm going to read another little snippet, right? And then we're going to talk about some of these characters so that those who are watching, those who are listening will get a feel for it. And then they got to go out and buy the book to
Yeah.
know the whole story. Okay. So we already said that here's Nia Bryant. She's waited her entire life. She's pledging this sorority, and she basically is waiting for this opportunity to come out, their coming out show. But what happens is she's missing, right? She
Mhm.
goes missing. So with no clues left behind except for her abandoned car, Detective Chris Evans and his partner have very little to go on when they receive the assignment. The case makes national headlines, and the detectives know that they only have one chance to get this right. Nia Bryant isn't your typical victim, and girls like her don't just disappear, at least not by choice. And
Mhm.
so let's talk about some of these characters, and I'll name them and we'll kind of just talk about them so that those who are listening and watching will have an opportunity to kind of piece some things together as they prepare to purchase the book.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So we have the main character, which is Nia Bryant. Nia has a boyfriend named
Mhm.
Byron.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. There's Evie, which you heard Sharhonda mention. And Evie is a very pivotal character in the book. It's interesting to hear you say that she didn't really have a voice, but she becomes a very pivotal character in this story.
Mhm.
Tori is Nia's best friend, right?
Mhm.
And then we have Diana, who is the president of the sorority, and Drew is her boyfriend. And
Mhm.
then we have another person who shows up, and his name is Trey. And he's a friend of both Nia and Tori because they have classes together.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Seems like I kind of captured pretty much everyone that's somewhat pivotal to the story,
Yes.
right? Now, when you think about Nia and how you built out her character, because as the back of the book says, she's not the typical victim, and that's because of who she is, whose child she is, right?
Right.
And so we come to find out through the story that she has a prominent parent, and there are some things that come to pass in regards to kind of all of these people because all of their stories are interwoven with each other. But what we end up finding out is there's some things that have connected these individuals without them even knowing that
Right.
ultimately lead to Nia's disappearance. Now, I want to know, how did you get to the place of, oh, I'm trying not to give everything away. Okay.
It was hard.
And I know everyone watching is like, just tell us. No, because my goal is to support independent authors, and I want to bring back the power of reading. So I
Mhm.
want people to read these stories for themselves, right? This is really for you to get to know the author, their writing style, how they came to write, and snippets of the story as well. But I want people to purchase. And so you'll see the link that's running across the screen, and there'll be a link actually in the comments as well that you can click on to be able to purchase Sins of the Lines by Sharhonda Exantus. Okay, so without giving too much away, one question I see popping up from Erica is, how did you keep the continuity throughout the book? And that is definitely difficult. Did you start out with an outline? Let me ask you that. Did you start out with an outline?
I didn't, and that's something that I think I should probably start doing. I kind of just, as the ideas came to me, I put them to paper. Okay. And that's why the book evolved as it went on. So I did not outline it. I had like if you read the prologue really doesn't seem like it has anything to do with the book. Right. But then when you get to that epilogue, it's like everything rounds out together. Yes. So that was difficult to do. And to keep the connection between the characters. It was like building blocks of where does this person fall, and how do they impact this other character, and how their past and their present come together. When you look at the parents and how the part that in the beginning it didn't, without giving too much away, it didn't, they just seemed like, worried parents.
Yeah.
And then you get further into the book and you see that, wait, everybody is entwined in some type of way. And I think that's what makes something like what I like to read and what I like to watch. I like to see the intricacies of relationships, of how people interact with each other and their past and their secrets and things that eventually always come to the surface.
Yes. And you did. Look, I have to keep saying it. You did a phenomenal job with doing that, because like I get goosebumps thinking about the story. And you're right. When I read the prologue, as I kept reading the story, I was going back to the prologue, trying to piece things together. And I was like, where did I don't understand. It wasn't until I got to because I do watch a lot of TV and I do read a lot of fiction, certain things I started piecing together. But it wasn't until the epilogue where I was like, oh, whoa.
Yeah, that prologue was written. It wasn't written first. The story started first. I got the idea for the prologue, but the epilogue came really like a few weeks before I published. Like it all rounded out in the end. So like I said, I don't really, I kind of like freestyle when I write, and it just comes out. So
yeah, it's funny. When you said you didn't create an outline, when I wrote my first book too, I did the same thing. I was just kind of writing as thoughts came to me, and I did not outline. And it wasn't until it got to my editor where she was like, "Wait a minute, Stephanie. This character, her kids had totally different names at the beginning of the book, and now their names are totally different." And I was like, like, I didn't realize it, right? I was just going with the flow. And so I learned later on to start outlining and doing character development so that I didn't make those type of new author errors, right? But you just feel so inspired to share the story that you just start writing, and you were able to do it so masterfully, right? You were able to really weave together all of these stories of all the people, because even though you might read and you think Trey's like there, right?
Yeah.
What's he there for? He ends up being pretty pivotal.
He was very pivotal, and I wanted something in there with Trey and Tori, some type of positive aspect. He was her support system.
Yes.
So that was his part, but in the end, he came through.
He did. And she needed him. Because here it was. She was Nia's best friend. She was kind of like that wallflower. She was very shy. She didn't have other friends. And so for her best friend to go missing and she has no idea what happened to her, she needed someone to lean on. Right. She didn't have her mom, in the sense of her mom lived somewhere else, but she also didn't have that strong relationship with her. She lived with her Aunt Lynn. right? And even that relationship, sometimes you felt like it was, I'm just living here. I'm just living here.
Uh,
But they didn't have that deep relationship with one another, right?
mhm.
Because she was not the mother's sister. She was
The father.
Tori's father's sister, and Tori didn't even really have a relationship with her father.
Yes, right.
Here it is, you're living with this aunt and you have really no real support system. So Trey was that for her. And I love the way that you built that out. Even to the place of almost like trying to develop a romantic relationship with them. Um,
Mhm.
I'd be curious to see if they come back somewhere too, but you know.
Yeah. I'm thinking about bringing at least Tori back. But the idea was for them to be in the end in romantically involved, but with her mom and everything, it's difficult for her to.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Well, you played it well. You
Yeah,
definitely played it well.
yeah.
Okay, so now I heard you say that you are thinking about, or you pretty much will bring Detective Chris back. Tell
Mhm.
us a little bit about Detective Chris because he really, like, he poured his heart and soul into finding out what happened to Nia. Like,
Yeah.
where was she? What happened? And he went to great lengths to really figure out what happened to this young lady. So tell us a little bit about, and I know he was based on your husband, but just tell us about the process of bringing him to life, especially because we're going to see him in your next book.
Yes, you will. Yeah, Detective Chris was dealing with a lot when he first got the case. So he had a case where he lost a another child, teenager,
Yeah,
and wasn't able to save him. He was carrying a lot of guilt.
yeah,
And when he got the assignment for Nia, it was something that he wasn't expecting because he had been, his work performance had suffered.
yeah.
So Detective Chris is someone who is dealing with his own. I'm looking at the chat. Detective Chris is someone who is dealing with his own issues with work, his own issues with his career, him trying to balance, his relationship with Rosalind. He's just having a lot going on, but he's also a his own thinker. So Detective Chris is someone that even when he sees something that seems like it's off or wrong, he speaks up about it. He doesn't just go with the flow. He doesn't just say, "Oh, okay, well, my sergeant said this or my lieutenant said this. I'm
Mhm.
going to go with it." And that came into play with Diana. She said something to him that resonated with him that made him feel like he was they were making the wrong move with her. He wanted to look further into it. He even had a little tiff with Kramer over it. Kramer's like, why are you questioning? Just go with it. This is what this is. It's pointing to her, and he was a thinker, a free thinker, and I think he kind of dealt with that sometimes because he actually would go against the grain a little, and
Mhm.
sometimes would have issues with his superiors. But that ultimately made him the key to this
Yeah.
to solving this case.
Yeah. And what I loved is that as you're reading, it really everything points to one person, right?
Mhm.
Everything seems to be pointing to this one person. And, my mind was thinking, okay, well, if it's not, then who could it, and like everything is pointing to this person. And
Mhm.
it really does put you in a place of trying to think it through logically, but there's really no logic to it. Like,
No.
this is like all emotion that drives people, right? And we can see that even in reality, right? Where we are today, where emotions drive people to do things
Right.
that maybe they would not normally do, right? Because of past hurts and past pains that they have not processed, they have not worked through. And we see that show up in so many ways with a multitude of the characters, that there's things from their past that really are holding them hostage. And it puts them in position to do things that maybe they would not normally do. And so, even without actually saying those things, I love how you weave that in because you could see that these are people who are dealing with a lot of hurt. These are people who are dealing with a lot of secrets. Ooh, like, look, I keep getting goosebumps. I'm like, it's just the secrets that
Yeah.
these people have kept for so long, and how those secrets can really ruin not just your own life, but the lives of so many people around you. And that's what we get to see, with Sins of the Lines. And so, um, let me ask you this now. There was a okay, all right. um, I gotta figure out how to ask this question. So there's some, I don't want to say gore, it's just some stuff, that you're like, uh, like, why did it have to happen in this way? uh,
Mhm.
was that also something that you kind of brought in after the edits, or had you been thinking about that from the very beginning?
Are you talking about with Nia or
Yes.
with Nia?
Yes.
Okay. No, I that was from the beginning.
Okay.
And I actually, when I shared the idea, someone asked me, does it really have to be that way? And I'm like,
Yeah.
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 Because I think I don't know, I've never really asked a reader, but I think, some people may have wanted to like hear from her and, know more about her. And she was kind of like an afterthought because we spoke about her, but she didn't actually, speak in the book. So
Mhm.
it, it had to happen that way. I thought about possibly changing it and I was like, oh, no, I'm gonna leave it like that.
You know what? Hearing you say that, it's so true. Like, she didn't have a voice.
No.
And
And everything you know about her is from what other people have said about her and
yes.
the opinions of her, depending on who you talk to.
Mm,
Tori, is her best friend, but there are parts of the book where Evie was,
yeah.
speaking on her in ways that weren't the same as, other
Yeah.
people in her life. Same with
Yeah.
Diane. So
Yeah, and it's true. It's because we uncover some things in regards to Nia throughout the book that make you think, okay, she's not the person that everyone would have imagined, right?
right.
Um, and you begin to think those things about her are kind of what lead to her disappearance.
Hmm.
Mm. So now, with with um with you saying about her not having a voice, even though she is the main character
Hmm.
and the book is centered on her and she doesn't have a voice, would you ever consider um, giving her a voice, right? In potentially another story where we get to know a little bit more about her from her own perspective and not what people have thought about her, said about her, or knew about her.
I haven't thought about bringing her back or having her voice in any type of way. I will say that in the next book we will hear a lot from her mother.
Oh,
So yes, so the next book I'll give that as a spoiler. We will hear a lot from her mom. So through
I'm
that,
already on the edge of my seat trying to figure out what this next book is going to be about.
yes. So this is we will I guess in a sense, we will hear of Mia in the next book, because you know, time has passed.
Yeah.
So we will hear some, remembrance of her,
Mhm.
but we will actually delve more into,
The mom.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
My
yeah,
mind's already
little spoiler
formulating.
alert.
Say it
Yeah,
again.
little spoiler alert. But yeah, and I think it will kind of feed into the first book because you'll kind of get a chance to see why things are the way that they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you'll get a chance to see.
That's so good. And so I will encourage everyone watching and listening that you do need to read the first book because you'll get to understand just a snippet of who her mom is, right?
Yeah.
And some of the relationships that were formed throughout the story. Um, because I'm sure some of that's going to show up in the second book.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I wrote it and I started writing, I was like, I'm not gonna really go back but I am trying to fill in some gaps up for you, just in case. But you'll really need to know the first book to kind of feed into it. It'll be a better reading experience, I think, if you read the first book and kind of know the backstory.
Absolutely. When you write that second book, I'll be the first one to buy it. And then you have to be on the show again so we can talk
Yes,
about it
and
again.
I'll definitely come back. Definitely.
Excellent, excellent. So I want you to kind of give some maybe 3 tips that you would give a new writer, especially someone who wants to write mysteries, thrillers. What would be some of the things that you would share with them from your experience in the writing process that would help them maybe make their writing process smoother?
The first thing I would say is make sure you read what you like to write. So I like I said, I love mysteries. I love reading other authors. Like right now, I'm working on my second book, and I'm dying to read a book, but I don't really have the time.
Yeah.
But it really helps to see how people form stories, how they come up with ideas. Just reading what you like to write will definitely help to build your writing skills, especially for someone like me who doesn't have a background of this. That is not going to have the background of this at all, which is a little intimidating. It was like I read these, I've read so many books, and I'm like, I feel like I can do it, but I'm not sure. And I really it's intimidating. And when you get good feedback and you're like, oh, I can really do this. So just having that background with knowing what you like to read, so you can kind of form your book based on what you would want to read in a book. My second piece of advice would be to be consistent, and this is something that I still struggle with,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to get better at. So this book took me 6 years to write. I constantly put it down and picked it back up. I think it's important for people to realize, things happen, life happens, but try to be consistent with your writing, even if it's just, one of my best friends, she was just like, if you want, just 10 minutes a day. And at first when she told me that, I was like, but what's 10 minutes going to do? But that's all you can get in, eventually you build upon that, and you will eventually have a finished product.
Mm-hmm.
So, I really try to make sure I'm getting better at being consistent. And then my third piece of advice would be to seek help, seek outside resources. I took a master class when I first started years ago, a writing master class, and I went in and blind, not knowing anything, and I got so many tips from another published indie author, her journey, and different platforms that I had never heard of, Readsy and Upwork and things like that. Like, you don't know these things, especially if you're not in that world. So just seeking help, taking advice from other people who are in that world, other writers, editors.
Yeah.
That's so helpful, because you'll save yourself a lot of mistakes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's difficult for me to ask for help. It really is. Like I try to do everything on my own, and then I get frustrated because I'm doing everything on my own. So you try to outsource and get people that are good at what they do to do those things for you.
Yes, absolutely. And I see Christian's question too, but I'll say this 2 things. Even sending out advanced reader copies, which we call ARCs, right? For some beta readers to be able to read it and
Right.
give you some suggestions, I think is also helpful,
I,
because it gives you great ideas that you didn't even think about. And you're like, okay, let me see how I can incorporate it. If not in this book, maybe in the next book, right? And
Can I
so,
say something about beta readers?
yeah.
So I didn't use beta readers when I first, I got about 2 months before publication date, and I was working with a marketer, and he said, did you send this book to beta readers? And I said, no. He said, you might want to. He hadn't read the book, and I sent it, and the feedback was harsh, but it was very helpful. That this book, the real changes that came about happened after, within that 6-week time frame after the beta readers. They are pivotal, and I don't think a lot of people realize that. And I didn't realize that. I was like, oh, I already sent it to the editor. And, editors are sometimes busy. They're like, well, I'm just supposed to just edit, the grammar or whatever. And they kind of skip over certain. And these are actual just readers, non-paid. And they're like, I mean, I had one that was very good feedback, and two basically told me like, this book sucks. Yeah. And I was so depressed. It was like 6 weeks before. I was like, I'm getting ready to roll this book out. And I just buckled down and I took everything that one beta reader said. And I went back and then once I read it, I was like, I see what they're saying. And I changed the book up, to fit what the reader wanted. And it worked out that way. Yeah.
That is fantastic. Now, did you go back and send the new edited version to that beta reader to say, haha, see?
I should have. I didn't, though. No, I didn't send it. And then I went through a platform and they said, would you pick this beta reader again? And I was like, I mean, if you think about the feedback, you wouldn't want bad feedback, but I actually would, because this person kind of gave me, the push to make changes in the book. I mean, there were dialogue in the book that this person said, I don't need this. Why are you putting this in here? I didn't like it. And I was just like, I can see, what they mean. So yeah, that's pivotal. Yeah. Get help when you can, because
beta readers will help your story be so much better. You could do focus groups, beta readers. I mean, it is so helpful. Christian says, why a sorority girl versus a regular college girl? Oh, and you shared a little bit about that early on too, why you chose
the relationship, the intricacies between those relationships with, people, in those type of organizations. They, they usually stick together. They're like sisterly, brotherly bond. You never expect something like this to happen. It's the least expected. It makes it more exciting to, to read to me. So
yeah. And you know what? Honestly, this story would just not have been the same if it was just a regular college girl. I mean, the title speaks volumes, especially if you know anything about sororities and fraternities, Sins of the Lines.
Yeah.
It speaks volumes. And so I think you made the right choice in choosing someone who was in a sorority versus someone outside of a sorority, because it gave the glue that kind of put the whole story together.
Right.
So, great question, Christian. Thank you for that. Something else I was going to say. Oh, when you were mentioning about, and you and I are very similar in so many ways when you talked about not outlining and just writing, but then you said something else, and let me try to think of what it was. When you were talking about reading books similar to what you want to write. And I totally agree with that. I also believe that you should read books in a variety of genres, because it helps you to understand the writing process overall. It helps you understand how to write in different ways. It helps you to understand how to capture different types of readers, right? And so reading, period, is fundamental. But for writers, if you know you want to write fiction, you definitely have to read fiction. If you know self-help is your space, read a lot of self-help, but also branch out and read other types of genres, because it helps you to figure out how to bring stories together. And so thank you for sharing that. I love to hear writers say that they read, because I struggle with people who say I want to write a book, but they don't read books. I struggle. And as a coach, that's one of my biggest, it's like a pet peeve of mine.
Usually you have to like to read to write. I don't know how you would be able to, but I guess some people
struggle to write a book. Let me say this. The grace of God can allow you to do anything. So if you have that type of anointing where you don't read, but you can write a book because of the grace of God, that's one thing. But if you don't have that grace and you don't read, it is very difficult to formulate a story, because you don't know how to weave all the pieces together.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm going to encourage people to read your book. I don't care what type, if you are a writer, I want you to read this book, Sins of the Lines, because Sharhonda shows you how to weave a story together from the past to the present. She shows you through her writing how to weave a story, how to weave people together, these characters that you would not even believe had connections. She shows you, she demonstrates that through her writing. So I encourage you, if you are a writer of any sort, I don't even care if you're writing children's books, okay? Read this book because it is a true demonstration of someone who understands how to put a story together, right?
Thank you.
And I don't just say that because I've met Sharhonda. I say that because as an avid reader, I have literally been reading since I was a child. Okay. I have read probably thousands of books at this point in my life. This is a very, very well written book and a very well put together story. Like I could see this as a movie. And when I read fiction, I want to see it come to life. And I felt that. I was like, this right here is a Lifetime movie.
Hopefully, maybe one day.
Yeah, we are going to speak that into existence.
Yes.
Lifetime, what's the Netflix, whoever, like,
yes.
Hey, we will start on Tubi. Like this.
Yeah. Just get out there.
Get it out there. So if there's any screenwriters out there, like this needs to come to life. Yeah, Erica said definitely a Lifetime movie. It needs to come to life because it's so powerful, right?
Yeah.
I just love this. So I'm biased at this point.
Thank
but,
you.
People watch this show.
Yeah,
they know. I love stories. I love to be able to have people like yourselves who are excellent storytellers to come and share. So tell us, you have the next book coming. About when can we expect that to hit the shelves?
I'm hoping 2025. I'm giving myself a goal to have the first draft done by like second week of November.
Okay.
But I'm hoping by 2020. I don't want to wait too long to lose the momentum from Sins of the Lions. I don't. If people go on my social media, you'll probably see a few posts down. I actually wrote a second book that was totally unrelated to Sins of the Lions. Got to the end and just wasn't speaking to me. It's still sitting on my computer. I may go back to it at some point. But I got the idea from when I went to an event and another author was speaking to me and an idea came to my head for a second. I was not going to do another edition of this book.
Yeah.
So I'm starting from scratch again. I've been writing a few months now, and but it's going well. Because I have an outline. I may go back and do. I have an outline, but I do know I know what's going to happen. So hopefully by 2025, we will have something. I will probably say maybe around summer.
Oh, okay. I'm excited. Yeah. I love Detective Chris. I'm so interested in knowing more about his backstory, how he came to be. And I think he makes an excellent main character for a story.
Yes. He'll be back, and I'll have Rosalind will be back as well. So,
yay! Yay! I was okay. I like that. I'm liking it. Okay, Christian. He says this is a Tyler Perry movie. We're going to invest in better kids.
This is what I deal with
all day, every day, right? Hey, it makes your household exciting. I love it.
It makes it exciting. So
that's so good. Well, Sharhonda, tell the folks how they can stay connected to you. We have the stuff running across the screen, but for those who are going to listen on the audio version, share with us how we can find out more about you, follow you, so that when part 2 of, we'll call it Sins of the Lions right now, since we don't know what the book will be called, but part 2 of this fabulous book comes out.
So you can visit my website, www.sharhondaexantus.com. I'm on Facebook under my author page is Sharhonda Exantus. I am also on Instagram at _farmd, PHARMD _ and I'm the same handle as well on TikTok at the FarmD Novelist as well. That's the best way to stay connected with me. I'm on social media a lot. TikTok, I'm just getting on. I'm just getting my feet wet with that. But I'm trying to um, record my journey with this second book, kind of bring my readers and my small following in to kind of see the process of how this second book is going to roll out. Because I have the people that stuck by me and, supported my book, and I want them to kind of see how this unfolds. So those are the best methods to get in contact with me and stay connected. So I'm always looking for book clubs and readers and just answering questions. I love doing it, so.
I love that. Well, you all heard her. She's looking for book clubs, ways to stay connected with her growing fan base. Again, visit her website at Sharhonda, and that's Sharhonda, Exantus, EXANTUS.com, as well as her social media handles. I'm jumping on that social media bandwagon. I already follow you on Facebook and Instagram. I'll be on TikTok to follow you as well,
Oh, thank
because
you.
I would love to see that process unfold. And I'm just thankful that you graced us as our season 7 premiere guest. This was so exciting to talk with you and get to know a little bit more about you. And I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see.
I can't wait either. I can't wait either. It's been a journey. So I'm very excited, and thank you so much for having me. I love talking about my book.
Yes.
So yeah, it was very nice to come on and speak to the people. So
excellent. Well, I thank you for your yes, your obedience to just do this. And I do believe that great things are already happening for you, but so much more is going to be unfolded for you as you go into this next stage of your writing process, but just in your life and your family. I speak blessings over you all as you all continue to forge ahead. And I love that you and your husband kind of, are undertaking this journey together. I think that's so beautiful. What'd you say?
Yeah, that's my tag team partner. So
everybody needs someone like that. So I'm so happy to hear that he supports you in this process, because not everyone has that. And so that's a blessing that you have that on your side. And I just continue to encourage you from one author to another to just keep going, never give up, because I definitely believe there's far more books in you than you believe. And this is definitely something that is going to grow and prosper for you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Storytime with Stephanie airs the second and fourth Monday of every month, and while we're in season. And so this was the premiere episode. We are just so thankful for you all joining us live. And for those who will listen to the replay or watch the replay, you also can find us on all of your major podcasting platforms, so you can listen on the audio version as well. And I just want to leave you with this. I want to say that you need to be careful of who you befriend and get into relationships, because it could end in disaster. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Be blessed. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Storytime with Stephanie. If you're an independent author and you'd like to be a guest on our show, email us at info@stephanieouten.com with your name, the name of your book, and why you believe you should be a part of our show. Also, if you'd like to support our show by sponsoring an ad, you too can email us at info@stephanieouten.com for more information. We'll see you next time.